It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, discussing incredible classic beers. And when you're talking about the American beer scene, the kind of impetus or kind of what sparked craft beer as being like this big revolutionary thing, is arguably this style of IPA, India Pale Ale. Because India Pale Ale and IPAs kind of what caught on and got the public's imagination going on craft beer and became a style that was so synonymous with craft beer that a lot of people to this day that aren't really in the craft beer bubble will just refer to any craft beer they think is an IPA. This is something I've dealt with a lot in my career, is that people would say, this is my favorite IPA, and they'll hold up a Blue Moon because they use those two terms, to cross over into one another, which is so interesting. But talking about that and talking about the history and how important IPAs have been to craft beer in the United States and all throughout the world, you have to talk about Lagunitas and you have to talk about their IPA. Because while it wasn't the first IPA or the first India Pale Ale, maybe not the first even West Coast IPA, it was one of the early adopters of that style. They really helped to build what the lore of a West Coast style or an American IPA was, and then kind of carried that flag along with some other amazing brands through the start of the craft beer emergence. So yeah, Lagunitas IPA, Lagunitas is a brewery in general, opened in 1993, fantastic beers. I mean, I remember back in the day trying to get my hands on every Lagunitas beer that I could possibly find, beg, borrow, or steal, trade to try to get your hands on all these special beers that were coming out, because their cores were fantastic, but their seasonal releases were so spectacular, so well made, and so interesting. But the IPA has been a core beer since 1995 for them, and it continues to be excellent. I kind of wax poetic about the classic West Coast IPA because so many IPAs have gone much more to the tropical fruit, the hazy IPAs, which I absolutely enjoy. But anytime that I can sit down and have a classic style India Pale Ale, especially in that West Coast style with this dank, resinous flavors, the herbalness of it, along with all that big citrus and some tropical fruit, but more of a subtle nod to some of the tropical fruits like pineapple and things of that nature, I'm a really, really happy guy, because that flavor profile just isn't, I don't get that satisfied as often in the IPAs that are coming out now. And I go to the store and I try to grab a new IPA off the shelf, odds are it's going to be a big tropical fruit bomb. I just want to mention this. It's not about Lagunitas' classic IPA, but they just came out with a hazy version of their Maximus, which is a double IPA. I've done that on Old Paper Friday before. I absolutely love that beer. They did a hazy version of it, really, really good. So I have to say this. And once again, I'm not biased against that style. I just really appreciate the classic West Coast style. So if you're looking for the hazy style and you want to go try something new, the Maximus, the hazy Maximus is really good. But going back to this one, listen, the right amount of bitterness. It's not a bitter bomb. And when it was first released, it probably was, but so many beers came out with our higher IBUs and higher bitterness. But this is just that nice medium to high bitterness that just makes this beer so refreshing and delicious. Such a good food pairing beer. Along with the citrus hops and that pine resin, you're also picking up some malt. You can actually see from the color here, a lot of IPAs, when they're not super hazy, they're almost, transparent. They're almost yellow, bright yellow. This has a little bit of an orange hue to it. You can tell they used a little bit of caramel malt or some kind of malt character to build off this honey caramel kind of flavor. It's something that I really like. I actually have friends of mine who can't stand caramel malts or darker malts in their IPA. My head brewer Ralph is one of them, and I always joke around about that I'll just go in there and sneak some into his IPA recipes because I do like that flavor profile. But it's the right amount. It doesn't dominate the beer. It doesn't make it a malt bomb, but it has malt flavor. And I think that's important, and I think it's something we kind of are missing out on. We're really focusing so much on all these fruit flavors we can get from hops, and we're forgetting that one of your best weapons for making flavor is some really, really good malt and to add some complexity to it. So this to me is just fantastic. It's a beer that you can go to time and time again. It's a beer that's been made for over about 30 years now. So you just have a great brewery making a great beer in a style, being a pioneer in it, and still making great beer to this day. It's something we absolutely have to respect, and we have to shout out here at Old Favorite Friday. Beer and food pairings for this one. There's a lot of great things you can do with an IPA, buffalo wings and things like that. I was thinking something we can do here would be just something simple like a sesame chicken. Sweeter dishes tend to go good because the sweet balanced out the bitterness. I also like crunchy, fried foods and things of that nature. So like a sesame chicken would be a really, really good pairing here, as would like a barbecue pork buns or pork belly. Barbecue pork belly would go really, really well with the sweetness and the fattiness of something like a pork belly being really well balanced out by the bitterness of this, and also adding those like citrus and grassy, those flavors go really, really well together. So a couple things you can do with it. But as a beer that pairs really well with a lot of different foods, you can try a lot of different stuff and be really, really happy with it. I had to get one more sip. This beer is widely available. Lagunitas is a very popular brewery. You can find it all over the place. If you haven't picked one up in a while, go back and revisit it, because that's what this series is all about. Some of the beers that we kind of forgot how great they are because they're so ubiquitous and they're just really widely available. And we just get in our mind like, oh, that's Lagunitas IPA. What else do they have coming up? They get their new value pack. You get their new mixed 12 pack or something of that nature to try something new. But you got to go back to the old standards, appreciate how great they are. And if you can't find this, pick up some of the other beers. I just mentioned a couple other ones that are really, really good. Please continue to give us new recommendations for Old Paper Friday, the kind of beers that you're drinking, those beers that you really appreciate, you want to see featured. And also, please poke around the channel, like, subscribe. We have a lot of beer reviews. I've been doing these. I always say reviews. I don't really mean a review. Features. We do a lot of beer features on great beers because we already know these beers are great. Or else we would not be featuring on Old Favorite Friday. You can check those out if you like this one. And hope to see you next time. Cheers.